Hello.
Hey, Steve.
Hey.
How's it going?
I am well. This is my brother Derek. Are you ready to talk about interesting things?
Sure.
All right.
Interesting things.
I'm going
You
to
want to start?
Yes, I would love to. I'm going to launch into a piece of music
All right.
called A Suite for Violin and American Gamelan by the composer Lou Harrison. We'll listen to it. Okay.
Alrighty. Already I have tons of questions. So,
Okay.
first of all, what is a gamelan?
Okay, so gamelan is a Javanese instrument. It's
What?
Javanese
From Java.
from the not
Not the object-oriented programming
It
language?
is not an object-oriented programming language, nor is it made out of coffee.
Okay.
But yes, the island of Java. So it looks like this. And here's a picture. And so it's kind of tuned gongs, like imagine like a xylophone
How do you
made out of.
tune a gong? You replace it with a different gong?
Yes.
Is that how you tune it?
That's how you. Yes, that's how you tune a gong.
Okay.
So there's in a gamelan orchestra, which is like a bunch of different gongy type things. There are different instruments, and they're all tuned to go together and to work together.
Okay. So, no. American gamelan.
Right. Yes.
Go
Go
ahead. No.
So this guy, Lou Harrison, saw the gamelan and thought
In Java.
I mean, I don't know if he was in
He saw a
on the-
Javan gamelan.
That's right. Yes.
All right.
And he thought it would be a good addition to the music that he was writing, and so he appropriated it. He took the traditional gamelan, and he tuned it to the tuning system that he uses for his compositions.
Okay. What? All right. What tuning system is that?
So I think that he is most famous for pieces of Western classical music that are tuned to the just 5 limit scale.
Okay.
So it's a just intonated scale, meaning that all of the notes in the scale are produced by taking even ratios of some beginning note, some root note.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about.
So every single interval sounds pretty good. Is that right?
Every single interval sounds pretty good played alongside of that root note.
Yeah.
But may not sound very good played
With
alongside
each
each
other.
other.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll talk about the kind of the system.
Wait, but how does that differ from the original
So
native tuning
there-
before he appropriated it for his imperialist Western dog purposes?
Yes. So there are a number of traditional gamelan tunings. Indonesia has a rich musical history. The Wikipedia article tells me that those tunings are called Selendro and Pelong and Dagong. And
Wait, is all of that in Java?
Yep, absolutely.
I'm not much of a geographer. How big is Java?
It's an island. It's island size.
Like Cuba?
Oh, no, I think it's a little smaller than Cuba, actually. I don't really know.
Why do they have 4 tunings in an island smaller than Cuba?
Well, so in our culture, there's kind of a pressure to make things fit neatly, and you want a violinist from Paris to be able to play with a
Well, it's nice.
violinist
It's
in
nice
America.
to be able to play with each other. Yeah.
Right, but there are significant regional differences in tunings, and then also each gamelan orchestra tunes the notes in their scale slightly differently.
Like one town to the next.
Yeah, absolutely. So the D's are a little bit flatter in Cleveland than they are in Cincinnati or whatever. Essentially.
So, I take it these people don't get around much. That a Cleveland
Well,
gamelaner doesn't play with
I don't
the
think
Cincinnati
I don't think it's so much that the people don't get around very much, but the instruments don't.
Oh,
When your instrument is this
since
guy,
they weigh far more
yeah,
than
it's
the
a
people.
giant rack of gongs, and it.
So if I were a gamelaner in one Javan town and I
Uh-huh.
went to the next town over and I hit the gongs that I thought was right to
Right.
hit, it would sound right because the instrument itself would have done the transposing.
Yeah, sure,
It's
absolutely.
it's it's hardware retuning.
Yeah, hardware
you
retuning.
You don't have to
absolutely.
waste software cycles on
No,
the
no, you
transposition.
just hit the one in that spot.
Okay.
And that culture has its own independently developed music transcription system. So they have their own
Java.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. They have their own system for writing music, and are one of the few cultures to have a completely autonomous system for writing music.
Okay.
So getting back to this Lou guy.
Was that his picture? Does he look like Santa Claus?
He does look a little bit like Santa Claus. At least he used to in the late 70s before he was dead.
Okay.
He doesn't look like Santa Claus anymore.
Well, how would you know?
I don't. I
Maybe
heard.
Santa Claus looks like a worm-eaten rotten corpse. Have you seen Santa Claus?
You know, now that you mention it, I have.
Carry
not.
on.
Okay, so so he wrote lots of pieces of music, and he principally wrote for the guitar, and you can see that on the guitars that he played,
His frets seem to be non-linear.
they're in the wrong spots. Yeah. Yeah. So the frets on a normal guitar are not linear; they're in a log scale. And
No, I mean they're linear across though.
oh
right?
yeah. So
his are disjointed laterally.
yeah, that's right. Let's begin with the constructions of the scales that he chooses to use, and then we'll talk about the constructions of the instruments that support it.
Did he build that guitar by hand?
I don't know if he built
Or
it,
paid
or
some nice
if he
man to
paid
build it
some
for
nice man to build it.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I know that he
Lovely work,
is
anyhow.
accredited with developing the scale system, as being a developer of the theory behind it, but I don't actually know if he was the one to cut the frets or not.
Okay.
So, if you want to make music that where all the notes in the scale nicely follow the harmonic series, you've got a lot of options. Right? There's an infinite number of potential intervals between two notes. And so the theoretical system that this guy chose to adopt is a system where you make a lattice, an XY grid, and you'd write 1-1 right in the middle. Right? So that's your root note. That's
its ratio is itself.
Its ratio is 1. It is
do.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
All right.
It is the root note of your scale.
Great.
And then on the x-axis,
Yeah.
you write the next one to the right would be 3/2, 3/2.
1.5.
Yeah, one and a half. Yeah, and that's the musical relationship that in Western music we call a perfect fifth. So like from
okay.
C to G. It's the most consonant interval that we have or whatever. And then so if you go
nicest.
if you go the other way, the left on the x-axis, you get 4/3. You get 4/3. So the 1-1 is to 4/3 is to 1-1 what 1-1 is to 2-3.
Oh, okay. So it's the other way.
Yeah.
Does that make it the other way around the circle of fifths? If instead of C to G, you go backwards.
It gets you to an F.
Which,
so it's
because
yeah.
C is the fifth of F.
Because C is the fifth F. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. I'm with you.
Well followed, sir.
Yeah.
Right. So we're building this.
Arithmetic. I'm okay with
We're
the
building this
arithmetic.
lattice, right?
And this is the thing that the guy that played the Gamelan invented?
Yeah. So
Okay.
to jump back to old Lou over here. So this is the lattice that is used in the scale in the song that we just listened to.
Okay.
So we've got the same axes X and Y,
Mm-hmm.
but we didn't need all of them, right? We left out these dark gray notes. So,
Okay,
so
well,
we've got a G,
Mhm.
but we didn't need an F.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so we've got our theoretical framework. We know what notes we want, and then we pick our open strings of our guitar to be different ones, and then we just make the frets line up. So each of our strings starts at a different place in the harmonic series, so it needs different distances to make all the frets line up.
Nope. Don't follow.
Okay? So let's say we had a guitar.
Yeah.
And
the frets are
it has
laterally linear.
Right. No, let's say it has no frets.
Okay. Now,
It's got no
we've
frets.
We've got an upright bass.
Sure. Or yes. So we've got no frets.
Yeah.
Right. And we've got just one string for now.
Okay.
Right. And
good.
let's call that C. That's going to be our root note. That's our 1-1.
When you hit it open, it makes our do.
Yeah. It makes
Okay.
our 1-1. It makes
Yeah,
our C. Right.
great.
Okay. So we want to add a fret.
Uh-huh.
Right. So the way
You put it somewhere that it breaks the string into a sensible ratio,
Right.
so that it makes a
Yes.
nice sounding note in
So-
relationship to our do.
So if we increment our numerators and denominators,
Uh-huh.
right? What is the next one we get to? We got 1 1. What are we gonna get next?
Well, if I was only going to have one fret, wouldn't I want the G to be my only other note?
Well, if we're just going through the harmonic series, we're gonna go to 2 over 1. All right, so we got
so
one
it's an
one.
octave.
Yes.
We cut the string length in half,
Yep, that's
and then we get our
Yep.
next highest
Yep,
do.
we cut the string in half. We got an octave up.
Because each half of the thing vibrates twice as fast.
Exactly.
And that's what gives you the... Okay, all
Yep,
right.
absolutely.
So literally, this fret you're putting is halfway between the bridge and the head.
Yeah,
To
absolutely.
cut the string's physical length in half.
Yep.
That gives you the next do up. Okay, okay.
Absolutely. And so then we're going to keep going, right? So we've cut the string in half. We put a fret there.
Yeah,
And now we want to cut the string into thirds.
thirds.
Right.
But... Because... Wait,
We want that one. We want 3 halves.
but if you cut the whole into thirds, you don't get to 3 halves, do you?
Well, so if we cut it into quarters,
Uh-huh.
Right.
You'd get nothing but C's, right?
right? So
Oh, wait, but one of them wouldn't be a C.
the one that was lower,
Yeah.
that one down there,
That one wouldn't be a C.
right?
That would be... Was it the tritone? Is that what you get?
No, it's this one, but an octave lower,
Okay, okay.
right? It's our G, but an octave lower.
Uh-huh.
So this is how. So we're just going to go through this process of taking the string length, dividing it by 3, dividing it by 4, dividing by 5, and keep making smaller and smaller units down at the higher notes.
Uh-huh.
But, and this is the part where all of from whence all music springs.
Okay.
We tell ourselves this lovely lie that all C's are equivalent, and that if we get a note in one octave, we can put it in all the octaves.
But all C's are even multiples of the base C.
Of each other, yeah, absolutely. So all of your octaves of not just C, but of any note will be patterns of 2, 2, 4, 16.
Yeah,
yeah. Not, sorry.
So wait, where's the
2,
lie part?
4, no,
8,
2, 4,
16,
8, 16, yeah, no
32.
6.
Where's
Yep.
the lie part though?
Well, so if you were to take a natural sound source, like a vibrating string, for instance,
Yeah.
and you were to put it on an oscilloscope and do a Fourier transform.
Okay.
So you've got the amplitude of
Wait.
each frequency going up and down.
When a single string is vibrating, how many separate sine waves are there to break out? I thought it was one physical
No, there's lots.
with one string.
Yeah, absolutely.
Damn, I seem to have misunderstood things. Okay.
Yeah. So
And they're not whole number ratios of each other?
They are. They follow the harmonic series. So let's say we've got a vibrating string, wiggle, 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 wiggle.
Yeah.
And
Carry on.
and we run that on our oscilloscope. So we've got a C.
Yeah.
That's our root note.
Yeah.
And then the next partial, that's what we call our little spikes, right? After doing our Fourier transform. Our next partial is going to be an octave above that. It's going to be C.
Right.
But the next partial isn't going to be a C. It's going to be a G. It's going to be
Higher or lower?
higher. Always higher. Right. So there is not, in a normal, like in a string, for instance, there is not a partial where that first G would be in that first octave. That's the lie we're telling ourselves. Because we got a G in that next octave, we're going to put a G in all the octaves when we make our instruments, tune our strings or whatever.
Why?
Why do we tell ourselves that lie?
No. Why do I only get the next higher G and not the immediate one?
Well, so if we go back to our analogy of dividing the string,
Uh-huh.
right? When we divided it into thirds, so we've got a string going left to right, and we divide it down the middle, we get one node in the middle, and each half of that string is doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, and the center of it is staying dead still.
Exactly. And so when we divide it into thirds, we don't hear we don't hear the 2/3 part.
Mm-hmm.
We hear 3 individual waves.
So you can't go lower.
That's right.
With the non-whole number interval.
That's right.
That's interesting.
Yep. So that's why we get when we make our lattice, why we do this fudgy bit down at the end.
I wouldn't know how to explain that to somebody. Like, what is there something you call the points of the physical string that don't move because everything around them is wiggling
I think
back
they call
and forth?
them nodes.
It's a node.
Yeah.
And so you got like two wobbly zones around it.
Yeah.
In the center.
Yeah.
It's going down on the left and up on the right, and vice versa, wobbling back and forth. Right there, it's holding still.
Yep.
That's
absolutely.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So there are, needless to say, numerous different scales that you can build through this pattern. The XY axis here, using just perfect fifths, if you build
No, thirds are on the y-axis.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant x-axis.
Okay, just the x-axis.
Yeah, left, right, just the fifths. You get something called the Pythagorean tuning, which is the tuning system that the ancient Greeks are kind of famous for.
Yes, and that's right. The ancient Greeks, most famous for Pythagorean tuning.
Yes, that's it. That's what we know. That's what we keep them around for. Those ancient Greeks. Yep. So that's that. You can build lots of different instruments this way, lots of different scales this way, and they all have a certain sort of unique consonance, self-soundingness that you don't find in equal temperament tuning.
Okay. So Pythagorean tuning stays on the main x-axis without gesturing off the y,
That's right. Yeah.
But this Gamelan guy, he's not hanging out on the x-axis.
No, and so you can imagine when you start building lattices in 2 dimensions that you can build hexagonal lattices in 2 dimensions where you get like major thirds up and to the left, up and to the right.
Oh, because you want 3.
Yeah, minor thirds down and to the left, and fifths on the x, or however you want. You can start to build 3-dimensional lattices in which you have, another dimension.
No, I was really okay, and now I'm not.
Well, you just like you had XY, you put another one of your ratios going Z.
Yeah, but how do you make an instrument that sticks to the nodes in that space?
Well, the purpose of the lattice is not necessarily to map out where the notes are going to be on a fingerboard or to build a keyboard, though you certainly could do that. The lattice gives us the tuning system. So, for instance, in this XY lattice, we got 1, 1 as our origin. We want to figure out this 15/8 thing. We want to go up a third and then go up a fifth from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of the lattice is at the nodes are the possible notes a composer could pick from, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going up by a fifth on the x-axis or something, and then up by a third, then you can say 3/5 down and 4/3 up, and that would get you to another valid note if you were generating a scale in this music system to play around with. So my sense of what you could do with 3 dimensions is completely naively that you would end up with way too many damn notes.
Oh, yeah. So the reason that I gravitate to Lou Harrison's work here is that all of his stuff sounds pretty and approachable, and that's not true.
Despite the fact that he's wandering around in a massive state space.
Yeah, and that's not true of all just intonation musicians. There is a certain sort of kid in a candy store. Give me all the notes. Give me all the notes.
I know what all the notes sound like.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I've turned on a television in 1985.
Yes.
Tuned to a dead channel. I know what.
Yeah.
I know what static sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So to what do you attribute? Is he just making very mature choices of which nodes to ignore?
Yeah. So the lattices are all built the same, but different compositions only use certain points on our lattice.
Is he rigorous and methodical about, in a given composition, which points to ignore?
I don't know. I suspect that the composition came first, and then the lattice, and then the definition of the lattice came second. But
all right. This is well outside my expertise area, so it's interesting the way different people explore these.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to never doubt that there are lots of interesting things you can do in the world.
Do with ratios?
Yes.
Yes.
Fun with ratios.
Right.
Absolutely. Shall we move on? Shall we do the next thing? More questions?
Yeah, actually, I do have more questions. So, does all of his work sound like the stuff we heard earlier? I've now in my life heard exactly one brief portion of one piece of his.
Let's listen to another one, perhaps,
is it going to be,
for the guitar.
Do you think, is all of his stuff in the same state space? I mean, is he exploring the same set of notes?
He is best known as a composer of just intonated music. Yes.
Okay. And those are the ratios we're talking about. Just untonated is what you get when you have options of fifths and thirds applied on top of each other.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. So just intonation, strictly speaking, just means that all of the notes in your scale are derived through some system of even ratios. So it could be fifths and thirds and 9s over 5 or whatever.
Great, you can get to anywhere from that.
You can. You sure can.
Oh. Well, then what's it mean if you can get to anywhere? In what sense is it narrowing all the possible frequencies into ones that are commonly picked, then? If it includes you can get anywhere.
Just intonation means that, the term just intonation means that you make all the notes for your scale using
whole number ratios.
Using whole number ratios. But the thing I like about this particular composer is that he doesn't seem tempted to use all of them.
To go nuts?
Yeah.
The thing is, whole number ratios will get you a long, long way.
They
I understand you can't have pi here.
Sure.
But
But did you really want pi?
Yeah. 31 over 7, you can get really specific in your frequencies.
Absolutely.
If you're only limiting whole numbers is not much of a constraint.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's
Yeah. Listen to another.
Yeah.
So what's the primary instrument there? Is that a Gamelan?
I have no idea.
Not a Gamelan?
Not a clue.
Okay.
I think it's some sort of xylophone.
So
Xylophone and guitar.
how do you build a xylophone? You have to select physical.
Well, so some instruments are easier to retune than others, right? So if you want to make a just intonated saxophone, you have to start from scratch. But pianos, you just turn the string.
See how to do a guitar
system.
or a piano.
Guitars, you move the frets. For marimbas and xylophones, you change the amount of mass on the ends versus the amount of mass in the middle, and that's how you tune
the
it.
physical thing.
Yeah, you get out your sandpaper and you
Right.
sand it down to make it higher or lower as needed.
I've been reading Gödel Bach.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's segue into that.
It talks about Bach.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not all the way through it yet, but it's certainly interesting in the ways that the Bach portions are so far talking about how he's reapplying the same scale. in different modes. You know, he'll just flip the music upside down and then play it again.
Right.
Or flip it backwards and play it again. And so he's exploring how much variety you can get out of transpositions and manipulations of the same core melody.
Mm-hmm.
It seems very interesting, but regrettably, Gödel Bach is a physical book made of paper, and it's a high-quality doorstop, and also would probably make a reasonable sibling hit in the head with her.
Yeah, blunt force.
But it doesn't really include lots of audible music, and so I feel like I should crawl into the internet and see if anybody has good advice on like listening to specific Bach pieces. I feel like somebody could do a really good MOOC, massively multiplayer online course of just going through the pieces of Bach mentioned in Gödel Bach and talking about, you know, here it is upside down, now here it is backwards, and just actually letting you hear it. That's a significant deficiency in the book.
Yeah, so things were not always the way they are in the West in terms of tuning systems, and Bach is one of the pivotal moments in music history when, because of the number of transpositions and inversions and chord changes and harmonic variety of his music, it really developed in the West a huge desire for uniformity.
Well,
to get everything kind of straight. So.
As delightful and hilarious as it is for one town over the tuning system to be different, I can understand why you would want in Paris to be able to perform the same piece that was performed in London.
Absolutely.
So that we could think about it and think about the people that made it, and you know.
Yep.
Yeah. Feel free to dismiss these desires for uniformity as Western or even imperialistic, but I see a certain utility in being able to hear the same music two towns over.
Yep, and to play all of the music of your culture on any of the instruments of your culture.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You don't have to be like I always feel bad for harmonica players carrying around 12 different harmonicas, but imagine if the upright bass player had to carry around 12 upright basses.
Right.
You know, so there's that. It's good.
Yeah.
Next thing?
All very interesting. Well, a full shift, briefly, all the way away from music. What I've been thinking about recently is called Better Call Saul.
Okay.
And I know you haven't seen any. What I'll say about Better Call Saul is that it's Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
It is Breaking Bad. Season 6 of Breaking Bad is called Season 1 of Better Call Saul.
And it's like in the 90s?
Yeah, right. It's set in the past. None of that. It's what I've been thinking about. It is, I think, my favorite thing on TV at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But it's on a network called AMC.
Oh.
And so what they do for Better Call Saul is they release one episode every week.
Huh.
And they're going to continue doing this over the next, 12, 13 weeks, 10 weeks, something like that, right? So I'm going to have to sit around and wait for 13 weeks just to see how this season resolves itself. And I don't care for it.
The waiting?
Yeah. Out there in the universe, there's a company called Netflix, and they're based in the 21st century.
Right.
And in the 21st century, when you drop a season of a TV show, you put the whole season out, and then the consumer can ingest it as they please, plausibly in a single sitting, at their personal discretion, because they're adults who can decide whether they want their dessert first or their final episode 12 hours after they started the first one, or not. And what's weird to me is that I've never really gotten into any of the specific Netflix shows. I don't watch Orange is the New Black or House of Cards. Those are the big things that people binge watch. But just the fact that other people have the luxury of watching their shows when they want, it makes me resent AMC.
Yeah.
And I regret that Vince is making his best TV show on television with this regressive 20th century network that puts out an episode once a week. Like, the existence of Netflix in the universe has made me personally begrudge the old order.
Right. That is an interesting situation where you have two very, very different machines making similar products.
Similar content.
Yeah. One thing that I find, one thing that jumps out at me about that is, there's the saying, if you're not paying, then you're the product.
Yeah.
And so if I pay Netflix, part of my paying Netflix makes them make House of Cards in the hopes that I will like it, and the things I like they will make more of. So I'm the customer.
Right.
And they're making a thing for me, and they want to give it to me on time and stuff.
Yeah.
But of course you don't pay for television. You don't pay Fox for television.
Yeah.
And so you're really being sold to advertising firms,
right?
Corporations. Corporations are really the
but then
advertisers are really the customer.
But right, so the decision node here is not me or AMC or Netflix. It's Vince Gilligan who makes Breaking Bad,
right?
Or whoever is making House of Cards, Orange is the New Black, etc.
Yeah.
I feel like just intrinsically, if you're a content producer, you should be rejecting the ecosystems that burden your work with all this dead 20th century weight.
Well, I don't know if that's an
there's
accurate description.
No, there's very specific details. There's a lot of ins, a lot of outs.
Well,
several what have yous.
Yeah,
but what I want is for all the shows that I like to be consumable in their entirety immediately.
Sure.
For instance, the Netflix, they're about to release Fuller House.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
If you're an aficionado of Full House, you get to watch the entirety of your show all at once. But I don't, because my showrunner has decided to wed himself to the 20th century in the form of AMC.
Yep.
I'm happy to pay twice as much for Netflix. That's the thing. As far if what Netflix needed was to double my bill in order to make all the shows that I want and make them immediately, that's not a problem. This isn't me trying to get out of paying sort of business. I wouldn't even notice if Netflix doubled my bill. They may have done it yesterday. Reddit would tell me about it before I would notice Netflix telling me about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a hard knock.
Yes, I know. First world problems. What I'm interested in here is the way that I feel like this is an instance of the 21st century of technology stretching in new directions, and the legacy, the distance between the legacy and the contemporary being pretty tangible. And I look forward to a future where everyone is up to date. Working at the edge. Everyone should be cutting edge. The past should die. No, you can revive exactly as much of the past as you want for nostalgia's sake at any time. Then it is a utility and not a burden.
Yeah.
But waiting a whole week to see 45 more minutes of Better Call Saul is nothing but a burden.
I don't know. Yep. I can't get over the first world problems-ness of it.
All right.
I don't know. I mean, why?
Well, watching TV is a first world problem in and of itself.
So Better Call Saul is good.
Yeah.
You like it.
Yeah, it's the best thing.
You think it's good. So you think that this person who has a working running factory should tear that factory down and go build a completely different factory in the hopes of making a product that is as good as the product he's making now, except that we'll let him make it all in 6-month blocks and deliver it to you then instead of...
Well,
because it still takes the same amount of work to make a show.
Yeah, it's the same amount of work.
Yeah. You just deliver it in a lump sum instead of delivering it.
That's right. So long as anything is wedded to the cable model, nothing will get delivered in lump sums. So my goal is for everything to abandon that model.
Yeah.
If it can work for Full House, which I don't care about, and if it can work for House of Cards, which other smart people care about, but I don't at the moment, it ought to be able to work for the things I care about.
Right.
It just doesn't happen to be.
Yep.
Rabble, 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 rabble.
Rabble. Yep. Next thing?
Yeah.
Moving on, cruising.
Yeah, you got a thing?
Yes, I have a thing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so in the news today.
Seriously? What's in the news today?
Yeah, so Mr. David Cameron.
Oh, of the Greater Britain?
Of the Greater Britain, not of Lesser Britain.
No.
Is out this week talking about how the UK will vote on whether or not to remain in the EU on Thursday, 23rd of June.
Yeah, I saw that.
Right. So the EU is a massive pan-national thing.
Yeah, but okay. Already, everybody else in the EU uses the euro.
And that's not true, but lots of them do, yeah.
The massive block of them are using a common currency.
Yep.
And that is a significant portion of their membership in the
their investment,
of their alliance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, being in the Eurozone.
But the Britain has been clinging to their pound sterling since before God was born.
Yep.
So what
That's not
what
quite true
exactly?
yet.
No. Jehovah is
Anyways.
several hundred years older than the pound sterling. I was
so
kidding.
keep going. Anyways.
What exactly are they gaining by leaving? I don't actually understand. See, like if Germany was leaving, they would be reviving the mark, you know?
Yeah. So you raise an interesting point. So the Eurozone is closely linked to the European Union, but is not identical to the European Union. There are nations outside of the European Union which use the euro as their currency.
That's interesting.
And there are nations inside the European Union that choose not to.
Okay. Wait, who else has their own currency besides Great Britain?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. Are you making this up on the spot? Is all of Europe a fiction that you're inventing?
Am I making it up more than I make other things up, or
just in general?
No.
I could swear Europe wasn't a fiction. I think I've seen it once.
I think you have too.
So
the Eurozone is all the blue countries on this map.
Okay.
And the red countries are other EU members. So apparently Sweden is a member of the EU,
they
but
all
does
have
not
their own
use
currency?
the euro, and Poland and Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and Croatia.
Right.
Yep. Absolutely.
But all the mass of what I think of as Europe in terms of like the risk map.
Yeah.
The only thing that's not in the zone here is England. Everything else, well, I guess Sweden is really in Europe in the risk map. But those other guys are kind of on the Asia border. Okay.
Yep.
Right.
So my fundamental question there was, I feel like somebody else leaving the zone would be a huge pain because they would have to revive their own currency.
You mean leaving?
Complicated
Oh,
and terrible. But I feel like Britain leaving is less of a big deal because they've already got their own currency and they always have. What exactly does them leaving mean?
That's a very good question. So the European Union is a committee for committees of committees.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
like Princess Leia?
Yes, that's exactly what. Yes.
The Eurozone is like Princess Leia. I'm with you.
Absolutely.
Keep going.
Buns on heads.
Yeah. Babies on spikes.
Babies on spikes, where they belong. That's a very good question. So, you might remember that in the recent past, the country of Scotland within the nation of Great Britain, or of the United Kingdom.
I was thinking about independence from Great Britain.
Yes, absolutely.
I remember that.
Yeah. And so now you have the nation of the United Kingdom considering independence from the European Union.
In what sense are they currently dependent on the European Union?
So, like as you mentioned, the UK is not as subordinate as other states are, or dependent as other states are. But they do get, I don't know. They get to live in a friendly, peaceful region where conflicts are decided in committee.
Outside of the danger zone?
Outside of the danger zone.
If they break up with the Eurozone, will they then move into the danger zone?
The North Atlantic is a pretty dangerous place, historically speaking.
Because there are Swedish people who will come over with harpoons?
Well, there are Scots.
That's kind of a Great British problem, really.
That is one of Britain's greatest problems, yes.
They're delightful people.
You heard it here first.
Yes.
Their accents are like ours.
Yes.
because their grandparents are our grandparents. Yeah, you're asking good questions.
See, I feel like I'm asking stupid people questions. Like, if I had the slightest idea what was going on, I wouldn't have to ask them. I feel like if I knew anyone in England, I could call them up and they would answer me as if they were answering a 10th grader.
So we live in the United States of America.
I think I've heard of that.
Which is a nation.
I've heard of that too.
And inside that nation, we live in the state of Kentucky.
Okay.
And then within that state, we live in the unified urban municipality of Lexington, Fayette County.
Yeah. All right.
So we live in a city within a state within a nation.
I believe you.
Right. So what it means to be a state within a nation varies from nation to nation.
Sure.
So, them Canadians have, I believe, what's called a federated republic, where the states do not have constitutional privileges. Mm-hmm. The states are essentially administrative zones of the federal government. Mm-hmm. And in the United States, states have these, legal right things.
States' rights?
Yeah, they're, quasi-autonomous.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They have some, free will and stuff. They're not just administered from Washington.
Sure.
So, the United Kingdom is a nation within a supernation.
Yeah.
And it, just like, Kentucky is more autonomous from Washington than one of the provinces of Canada is from wherever the capital of Canada
is. Yeah.
The United Kingdom does seem to have greater autonomy, or at least is less invested in the European project than, say, Germany
Spain.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, I've derailed things. What were you going to say about David Cameron?
Well, I'm really interested in this idea of national modularity. That, Scotland could stop being part of the United Kingdom as a matter of, will.
Yeah.
And that Great Britain could stop being part of the EU as a matter of will. That's a very new development in the history of the world. And I think that if we see more of these border disputes resolved through referendum rather than armed conflict, I think...
Seems like a step forward.
It does seem progressive. I think it seems so progressive that we should start talking about post-modernity, or start thinking of it as a tenet or a signifier of some new chapter in international affairs. There are some stalwarts in the world, perhaps most notably us. The United States has shown very little interest in any sort of international law or subordinates to other nations. And I think that's very interesting. I wonder about the economic and cultural benefits and pitfalls that come from living in a region that might have a referendum to stop being part of one larger group or super group and become part of another group or super group. For instance, could some point in the future Scotland and Denmark team up in a North Atlantic-ness pact of nationhood? And that all sounds very interesting. Given American history, it seems highly unlikely that any of our territories are going to break off or form some new union.
Yeah. The South will actually not rise again.
Almost certainly.
Contrary to certain opinions.
Yes. Absolutely. So that is all. I'm interested in the nation, in the notion of nationhood.
As becoming more obviously fictional and therefore more obviously malleable.
I don't think it's any more or less obviously fictional. I just think we're at a point where a number of municipalities or semi-autonomous zones are so cohesive within themselves that they could essentially be modular units. So in the past, rule of law was a really rare thing, and you had to work really hard and fight a lot of wars in order to just have a stable, codified system of laws where people played nice and followed the rules and stuff. And you really needed to protect that within some consistent block national zone. But it's interesting to me to think that certain cities
in the future
might be so stable and so well locked in that they could sever ties with the surrounding zones and form new super zones.
Connections.
Yeah, absolutely.
Possibly not tied to geography.
Yeah, possibly not tied to geography in any way. Yeah. So, interesting facts about the world. So, the United States has some South Pacific territories, some islands that at some point or another the United States claimed. And the terms, for instance, of our treaty with NATO state that should any of those islands ever be invaded in the future, our NATO brethren are not obligated to help us fight wars in the southern hemisphere.
Oh, I see.
Right. So, for instance, if like New York gets attacked
we have other
some
guys
raging,
that will come to our side.
Peoples.
Yeah.
Then there's this sort of mandatory assertion that the states will activate. So
real interests are in the northern hemisphere.
Right. Yeah. So that's a treaty group that is very broad territorially speaking, and that has these special rules and edge cases for far-flung territories. So it's interesting to imagine that like someday like Toronto and Miami and Seoul might form a team of international trade and quasi-nation status, independent from their regional location. And it's not that they're non-territorial. It's just that territories might choose to associate with other territories far away. And given how incredibly expensive war is these days, compared to like not killing people, there might be little cause for their neighbors to fight to keep them.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about the future of energy. If 20 or 30 years from now we have unlimited power, that would certainly readjust some political alignment, globally speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. It is pretty remarkable that like so much of our time and energy is spent digging stuff out of the ground and then shipping it somewhere else.
Yeah. I've talked to other people about the current global project being a blood race between technology and death. And that applies on very personal levels. If you've got gut cancer, then your life is a blood race between your specific cancer cells and contemporary medicine. But then on a larger scale, if we can, give unlimited energy and food to everybody before the world blows up, then we may arrive at a stable point.
Right. The thing that I've always had a hard time imagining apocalyptic scenarios as anything other than fictions, and I think that largely comes with having been born in 1985 and seeing the end of the Cold War and being told about the horrors of the past. Right. Certainly we are capable of killing ourselves, but it would really be a lot of work. It would a society which is significantly more unpleasant than the one we live in now is easy to imagine. But a society in which literally all the people die, the total end of human civilization, is actually really quite challenging. Like, a pandemic isn't going to do it. We could lose 90% of our population, and the species would survive. Or even a nuclear war is unlikely to result in the real extinction of the species.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the point of post-apocalypse, is that...
Right.
10% have survived.
Right, post-apocalypse.
Yeah, the apocalypse never takes out everybody, or there wouldn't be any fiction afterwards.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah. I think whatever it is that we're doing, it's a good chance we're going to keep on doing it for a long, long time.
We'll see.
Yep. And on that pleasant note, see you later.
Bye!
Stop button.
The what button?
The stop button.
Which one?
Make it stop.
Where is it?